to the third annual Hollywood Reporter Tony's Actress Conversation. I'm Scott Feinberg, and we are joined today by 7 nominees. Let's go around the horn. To begin with, Michelle Williams, who's playing Una, a young woman who tracks down a decades older man with whom she had a sexual relationship when she was 12 in the play Blackbird. Cynthia Erivo, who's playing Celie, a poor woman who refuses to let years of abuse crush her soul in the musical The Color Purple. Jessica Lange, who's playing Mary Tyrone, a morphine-addicted matriarch of a troubled family in the play Long Day's Journey into Night.
A comedy.
Yes. Jessie Mueller, who's playing Jenna, a waitress and pie maker extraordinaire, stuck in an abusive marriage in the musical Waitress. Megan Hilty, who played Brooke, a skimpily clad and not especially sharp actress in the play Noises Off. And Laura Benanti, who's playing Amalia, a store clerk exchanging love letters with a man she's never met in the musical She Loves Me. And Lupita Nyong'o, who's playing the girl, a child bride lured into becoming a mercenary during Liberia's second civil war in the play Eclipsed. Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it.
Those are some cheerful parts.
Jesus. Cheerful.
Lighthearted.
We are very honored to have all of you. And Lupita, I know you have quite a history with Eclipse. Can you share how it came into your life?
Yeah, so I went to the Yale School of Drama, and the year I got there, the very first thing I was assigned to understudy was Eclipsed. I was on a flight from Kenya on one day, and then 2 days later I was in the rehearsal room understudying the role I'm currently playing. And I just remember just being so astounded by the story that Danai Gurira had created, these 5 very specific women in a very specific war. And she takes us into that world that I knew very little of and really has us fall in love with every single one of those women. And I just felt like it was a role I needed to play at some point. And so I put it on that bucket list and said, I'm gonna do this one day, even if it's in a living room somewhere. and then after my life changed because of 12 Years a Slave, when I was asked what I wanted to do, this was it.
Jessica, 16 years ago, you played Mary Tyrone. What made you decide to put yourself through this again?
Well, I mean, for me at this point in my life, there's no greater role. And, you know, I do think it is a monumental play. I think it's O'Neill's best play, and I think it may be one of the greatest plays, if not the greatest play in the American theater. So it is, you know, it's an honor to be able to come back to this. And I find returning to a part, especially after those, well, in this case, those interim 16 years, you know, there's so much more that you can bring to it because of your own life experience, whatever that is, you know, loss, disappointment, all the things that come with living. So it was, you know, it was something, I mean, not unlike what Lupita said, it's something I've had in my mind for 16 years that I wanted to return to this and do another production. So it was, it came about, and yeah.
Laura, it's not often that a soprano gets to be funny, and I believe that this is a part that has intrigued you even just, I guess, vocally only for most of your life, right? I mean, before you'd ever seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just a full-blown musical theater nerd. So I grew up listening to this record. My mom had the original cast recording with Barbara Cook on it, and I would listen since I was maybe 4 or 5 years old and be singing along with her. Humor is the lens through which I see the world. For better or for worse, it gets me in trouble a lot. But so for me to be able to sing this incredibly difficult coloratura operatic score whilst being funny, like having true moments of comedy, it's so refreshing, because so often as a soprano, you're the heart of the show, but everything is like a little wide-eyed and a little like, and then she swooned. So to play a fully drawn human woman, especially in a revival that was written in 1962, is just, it's a joy. And what I do like is that audiences respond so much to a soprano voice, and people aren't writing for sopranos anymore. And I hope that when we are able to revive shows in which the soprano voice is highlighted, that people go like, oh yeah, that too. You know, there's also room.
Sure.
So.
Jessie, Sarah Bareilles, who's quite a singer in her own right, came to see you in Beautiful, and I wonder if you can take the story from there.
Well, I didn't know that part of the story that you're getting to. I guess I did meet her on the opening night of Beautiful, and I had been a fan. And I remember she and Phil Collins were there. I don't think they were there together, but I met them at like the same time, and I kind of, I geeked out a little bit. Right. And then she told me later on that after she saw that, because she had been working on Waitress for a couple years, I think at that point, and she kind of saw it and she went, maybe that girl could do that part. But I didn't know that until we started working together on the project.
Sure. Megan, I understand you'd pretty much exclusively done musicals prior to this. Was it sort of a long time desire of yours to get into a play, straight play?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's this really strange thing that happens. People think that people who normally do musicals suddenly can't act. Yes. I got so many backhanded compliments at the stage door where they were like, oh, wow, we didn't know that you'd actually be able to act without singing. And I was like, what do you think happens when...
You're like, no, you just can't sing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it was...
doesn't mean you can't act.
It happened a lot. So, yeah, of course, especially for somebody who's already been established as a musical theater actress primarily, this was a huge deal for me to get cast in this, and I was very grateful.
Nice. Well, Cynthia, you, like a lot of us, saw the Steven Spielberg movie, The Color Purple, 1985 film, and I believe it made a big impact on you. And then your association with this role actually goes back a few years, already, right?
So I did this the first time in London, in a little tiny theatre called the Many a Chocolate Factory, and it held 200 people. So you were literally singing in someone's face, like sat on their laps, basically. And I guess I think it was the opening night or first preview, Scott Sanders, the producer, asked me if I'd be up for coming to do this on Broadway, and I was really English about it, and I thought he was joking. So I said, oh, that's really nice. If you'll have me, great, fabulous. And then didn't think anything of it until I got a call from my agent telling me that was the plan. They wanted to bring it here. It turns out that my director, John Doyle, didn't want to do it without me. And I'm completely grateful for that. And so I'm stuck with this show, which has basically changed my whole entire life. I didn't know it would do that, but it has, and I'm sat here with you all, which is surreal but wonderful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Michelle, it wasn't long ago you made your Broadway debut in a musical, Cabaret. You did a great job. Were you anxious to get right back? I mean, you didn't take a lot of time between these.
No, I was not at all. I have this habit of not really thinking things through and then saying yes, because I think well, my heart wants to do it, and then I don't really think about sort of consequences or possibilities. And I did Cabaret for a year, almost a year, and that was a little too long for my first time on Broadway. And so I was tired afterwards, and I didn't plan on taking on the schedule and the pressure and the everything again. But when I read this play, I was like, well, here we go. I'm going to do that thing where I'm like, my heart wants to. So, yeah.
Terrific. The difference between being the first person to play a role on Broadway versus being the 10th, 12th, whatever. Obviously, in this year here at this table, we have Jessie, Lupita, and Michelle, who are the first to play these roles on Broadway. The rest of you have stepped into shoes that have been occupied by others before. And I'm going to go to Jessica because you have played your three Broadway roles are the three greats.
Played more than anybody.
Glass Menagerie, Shrikar, and Now Long
Days.
It's
nuts, but again, it's kind of like, how do you say no to any of those parts? So, you step into this kind of abyss and, but no, I never think about that. And to tell you the truth, I hadn't seen Long Day's Journey on stage. I mean, I did the one production in London, but of course you're not observing, you're not in the audience, you're not watching another actor play the part. So, and the only thing that I was familiar with is the Sidney Lumet film with Hepburn and Ralph Richardson and Jason Robards. So, you know, I mean, there was, I had no, it was as though I was doing it alone for the first time. So I didn't have anything in my mind that was kind of, you know, that thing of, and I mean, you can't think in those terms, I don't think, ever. No matter, you know, if you're doing it for the first revival, or in my case, God knows how many revivals of this play have been done and will continue to be done, and that's the way it should be. And everybody will put their own mark on it, and everybody will come to it with a different set of, you know, emotional experiences, and every audience will respond differently to each performance, and that's why it's theater, you know?
Yeah, it's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And I know, Laura, you've done a lot more revivals than new shows. Is that a choice based on early experiences, or is that just the way it's worked out?
I don't think I've made a lot of choices in my life. I feel like I'm just like, oh, this is where I am now. This river pushed me here. So yeah, I think because, again, I'm a soprano, I end up in a lot of revivals because there aren't a lot of new shows in which the soprano voice is showcased. And you know, just what Jessica Lange said, like you don't go into it going like I have to be a carbon copy of so and so. You go into, I approach it like it's a brand new play. Yeah.
And also, I mean, just to add to that, I mean, there's a reason these plays are revived.
Yes. Right.
Because the parts are great, the stories are great, they're worth seeing decade after decade. You know, so I mean, it's. Yeah, I mean, those are some of the greatest parts you'll ever come upon, and you're not going to like say, oh, I can't do that because, you know, 50 years ago so-and-so did it. I mean, it's like...
At the same time, it's got to be kind of nice, Jessie, when you're, whether it's Beautiful or Waitress now, to know that you're kind of setting the bar in a way you don't have to be compared to
Well, at least there's no one to compare it to.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a whole different set of challenges because there is nothing to compare it to, but you're also creating something from the ground up, which is a joy, but it's also very, very difficult work. To me, it's amazing that I don't write. I don't have that gift. Like, I think it's amazing people can write a play or write a musical and out of nowhere and come up with these stories and know how to craft something and work with an audience during previews and figure out what's working and what's not and make all these decisions. It's amazing to me that it ever happens.
Sure.
So, but yeah, it's kind of a thrill, and when you get to work with people that are open to working with you and what you're, like you said, what you personally are bringing to it, or you know what I mean, like you were saying, just you only have you to filter through, so it's your experience and your emotions and all those things.
Because in this case, it's literally tailored the keys to your voice, right?
Yeah,
So,
I mean, it was amazing.
Right.
Sarah was very open to that. She was like, no, whatever key y'all need to sing it in, I want it to be comfortable enough for you so that you feel strong in it, so that you can bring your best to it.
Nice.
That would be nice. That sounds great.
Let's talk about stamina and endurance, because you guys are all going through a workout here.
This one ran a marathon before
Well,
a
that's,
two-show day.
I mean, that was amazing.
This jerk.
But let's just put out, I mean, some of the...
You ran a marathon?
Yeah, I was going to say, you had not quite arrived yet.
On Saturday.
Hear this story.
Not cool. She ran a marathon before two shows.
Half marathon.
A half marathon.
Sorry, half.
Yes. But like, that's incredible. What's also incredible is whether it's Jessica going and doing 4 hours 8 times a week, or Michelle at 90 minutes no intermission going full speed the whole time. I mean, you guys look like you're gonna collapse at the end of it. I just wonder, how do you guys prepare yourselves for this kind of endurance test?
I take it minute by minute. I have to take it step by step, otherwise I'd never get there. Just because of the emotional journey that this character particularly takes and the amount of time I have to be on stage without leaving. If I start to think about where I need to get to, I'll never get there. It's impossible. So you just take it one by one. For me, take it a step by step.
And I find that, I've been thinking about this recently, I find that that's the challenge. For me, the hardest time is the moments before I get on stage, when the mountain is ahead of you and you're just like, I can't. And every day it's total panic and confusion as to how this is supposed to happen, especially feeling the way I feel that moment, you know, the exhaustion my body is experiencing, you know, even just being parched in the throat, drinking water and it's just not doing enough, you know, and it's just like that. And then they say places and you get there and you get on that train and before you know it, it's over. It's actually blissful when it's happening and everything around it is chaos.
But it is. I mean, I always use that analogy. It is like getting on a train.
Yes.
You know, it feels like this enormous freight train coming, and you either get on, or if you don't get on, you're really But I mean, it just kind of carries you along once you step out on stage. I mean, it's like, it is amazing, and I find sometimes with, you know, those moments where you like suddenly like you drift for an instant and you think, oh God, where are we in this now? Are we like, and then it's just that thing of being able to like look in the other actor's eyes, and then it's suddenly it just like, and you're back there, and it all, and you just take it one moment at a time, which is a great, isn't it? I mean, it really is a gift for actors, because it's what, you know, in Buddhist philosophy and everything, it's all about trying to learn to be in the moment and like be present in the moment. And as an actor, that's what you do. That is your practice. And if you're not doing it, then you've really screwed up, and you've screwed everybody else up around you too.
Laura, you went into yours already dealing with some health issues, right?
yeah.
Maybe you can talk us through that.
Just to piggyback onto what Jessica said, you know, it is a wonderful opportunity to practice mindfulness, which I feel like in our culture, in particular right now, there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of. So I try to look at it in a way as a gift, so that I'm not looking at it as like, I'm so tired and I want to blow my brains out. But you know, I think it takes a village. For me, you know, I have pre-existing injuries from when I broke my neck and into the woods, so that's a constant. Yeah, that was a bummer. So that's a constant thing for me. Of Sean Gallagher, my physical therapist, and then my husband, who has to deal with me being on vocal rest all the time. You know. And my dresser, Holly, and the woman who does my hair, Victoria, when I'm like, I can't do this and I'm crying and I'm exhausted, they're like, you can. And they get me out there. So I feel gratitude for that. And yeah, I was really sick. I had horrible, well, I had an allergic reaction to an antibiotic the day before our first preview, and I went to the hospital.
Oh dear.
And they put me on prednisone, and they put me on a lot of prednisone, and it busted my immune system. And so I ended up with like all these crazy sores all over my body. It was just like nuts, but still on stage being like, everything's great. And then going off stage and sobbing and like, yeah, it was nuts. So performing when you're ill is really difficult. But sometimes in a weird way, when you're sick, and so like none of my other defenses, my nerves can't get in the way.
Your ego can't get in the way.
Your ego can't get in the way. You're just there, and you learn.
You have like hyper focus.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, especially in that like extraordinary fatigue, you know, like when we'll come on for our second show. I mean, and you'd have no idea how it becomes, and I don't mean to sound kind of new age, like
No, it's great.
whoa, but it is almost an outer body experience. I mean, you don't, it's like something else takes over, and it's doing it, you know, wherever that reserve of energy, or I don't know, something channel, whatever it is, it gets you through.
So, Megan, you're the one person whose show has already wrapped. You've had...
The one semi-well-rested one. I'm like, yeah, it's really awful, you guys. Yeah, all of that is really awful.
How good did it feel, you know, how good does it feel when you finally can kind of sleep in, and how long does it take the body to recover?
Oh, I have a 1-year-old.
Oh,
There's
sorry,
no
don't
sleeping
sleep
in.
with you.
Yeah, no. No, I'm still dealing with physical things. That I bruised my tailbone, I wrenched my neck. This play was the hardest thing I have ever done, physically, mentally.
Comedy's hard.
Yeah.
People joke about it, but it's like,
well, and just 8 shows a week. There's nothing harder. You can have an 18-hour day on set, and it's nothing is like keeping stamina for an 8-show week. So yeah, I'm still recovering from that.
So on this crop of shows, Jessie's been directed by Diane Paulus, Lupita's been directed by Lizelle Tommy, the rest of you have been directed by men, and I wonder, do you find yourself more comfortable working with a woman or not?
I'm just comfortable working with someone who really wants to get the work done properly. That's just it, really. I've worked with both men and women as directors, and I've found both times that both of them wanted to get the work out well and put something on stage that was human and connected, and John Doyle is no different. He's brilliant, actually, I must say. He's wonderful, and I owe him a lot.
Eclipsed was always in the hands of Liesl, as far as I have known it. And it is a piece that it's a very, very intimate female piece. The writer's female, all the characters are female. And Danai deliberately left out the masculine aspect because war is so much like driven by male energy, and that the female story seldom gets told. And Danai really wanted to give voice to that experience and highlight it. So I feel particularly with this piece, it being in a woman's hands was very, very helpful to really getting into the nuances of the effects of sexual brutality on the female body and the female spirit.
This Broadway season, the two most nominated shows are Hamilton and Shuffle Along, which feature big and almost
Sorry, what was that first one you mentioned? Never heard of it. Never heard of it.
big and almost entirely non-white cast. Additionally, there is Eclipsed, which is the first Broadway production in history to be written, directed, and performed exclusively by Black women. And The Color Purple, which obviously centers around Black actresses. Audiences on Broadway are incredibly diverse this year. It's very interesting. And I wonder for you, what can our viewers who are going to be watching this in Hollywood learn from Broadway?
That good work is good work wherever it comes from and whoever it comes from, and that everyone should be able to tell a story no matter what it is. I think that if you surrender to the fact that we are storytellers no matter our skin color, then you'll have a good story on your hands, I think, personally.
And Lupita, have you found Broadway to be a more sort of welcoming of diversity than Hollywood? I mean, what's your take on it?
Well, I think this is a particularly good season on Broadway when it comes to diversity. But that can be said of the year that 12 Years a Slave came out. You know, we had The Butler, and there was Fruitvale Station, and what else? There was a number of...
Mandela.
Long Walk to Freedom. So, you know, these things happen in both industries. The question becomes, when does diversity not become the headline but the norm? You know, that's when we don't have to talk about it, when it's just the way things are. And that's a time that I'm looking forward to living in.
And it's not only race, though, right? I mean, I think that
No, it's not.
in many ways, Broadway just seems to be more open to ideas, different sorts of people and ages and all kinds of things. And for those of you who have been working on Broadway for years, why do you think that may be the case? I mean, Jessica, do you have a take on that?
Well, I mean, I think in the, in the library of American plays, or any plays, English, whatever play, you have stories. You know, these are the stories that are being told, and it's not being catered to audiences, specific audiences, the way like film is. You know, now they talk about, you know, the audience for film is what? Post-pubescent teenage
it's
boys or
demographics.
something.
It's like
I
18
mean,
to
you know,
34.
Yeah, so they're not going to want to come see, you know, Long Day's Journey into Night, maybe. Yeah, but I think with theater, it has just traditionally covered a lot of ground, and it's not being, you know, it's not being presented in a way that is actually catering to the audience, who is catering to who is going to buy these tickets and come see this, not only come see it once, but come see it multiple times, which is why these franchises have taken off to the extent they have. But, you know, I mean, I just think that's the nature of theater as opposed to film.
Do you think, and I want to ask Michelle and Jessica and anyone else here, but I mean, I think because you guys essentially made your name on television or film, do you find that you are drawn more to, or in a sense pushed away from those mediums because the opportunities are now better in on the stage?
Well, this was really surprising because I had this conversation with Michelle a couple days ago, and I was very, go ahead.
You got something to say.
Because I was stunned when she said it. I mean, I'm used to not at this age, at my, point in my career and my life, and at the age I am, not to have a plethora of opportunities. There just aren't, But I was stunned when Michelle said she hadn't read a good script for.
That's been my experience, The parts, the material, the plays that I read, this play specifically was undeniably so much better than anything that I had come across in film, that it actually made the decision quite easy. All I want to do is, I want to play great parts, I want to work with great words, I want to play great characters. It's really the only way that it makes work joyful, is when you're not trying to sort of fix something, when you're just trying to rise to something, when you're just trying to, when you look at something that's so great and you just think how am I going to rise to that?
Right.
How am I going to have to train myself, prepare myself, better myself to meet that part? That's what I want to do. And I haven't had those opportunities for a long time in a meaningful way in film. So that's where, and I see those opportunities over and over again with theater. So that's why I came back. And also to keep getting better at it. That's the thing that I found with Cabaret. The growth that I experienced in that year was like nothing I'd ever really had in my life. I learned so much. I walked out of that like a much different actor. And I wanted that experience. I want that experience again and again and again. And this is the place where I can get it.
People always ask, why, isn't it hard? How can you do this every day? But the fact is, when you have something to play, it's so much easier than trying to make something out of nothing. Really, then when you have it there on the page and you're in the rehearsal, you, like Michelle says, you rise to it. But if there's nothing there.
Yeah, and you get to a point, I've done Eclipsed now for 23 weeks altogether. And I still find new things, that's what keeps it joyful on a daily basis. Because on one day I might find something new and bring it to the table. On another day, one of my co-stars has found something new, so I have something new to fight against, to try and win over. And so it's infinitely interesting. And Jessica brought up, the canon of work in the theater is such that you can find a great part, and it doesn't matter that it was played in London 2 weeks ago. You can take it and do it again. Whereas in film, you don't have that,
But also, I think the great parts, having done this now for, this is my 40th year acting, God, Jesus, I should quit, is that at every age, there's a great role for you to play. And that is not true in film.
I'd like to ask all of you, because my sense is one of the things people say they love about the theater currently is this idea of the feedback of the audience, the whole live experience. And so based on that, I want to ask each of you, we'll just go around the horn, what is the moment in your show when you most feel the audience and you're getting the feedback that means the most to you? Lupita?
Oh my goodness, it's going to be so hard to pick. Our show has attracted a lot of first-time theatergoers, which has been quite an interesting experience for us on stage.
As far as etiquette is concerned, and things like that? We often have audiences that really participate in our show, and you hear the laughs, you hear the sighs. Sometimes, there's a moment in the show, at the end of the show, not to ruin it for people who haven't seen it, but my character has to make a decision which direction she's going to go. And, sometimes people actually call out.
That's amazing.
They give me advice.
So that's a good one.
But in some ways, isn't that so beautiful? They're so in it, and they're so not editing themselves.
Yeah.
When in every other part of our world right now, people are always editing themselves and making themselves look one way, more this or that or the other. Like they are literally just experiencing something and giving it right back to you.
Yeah, it's impulsive, and I talk directly to the audience and as well, and so that is. I always have something to report every end of the show.
Laura, how about you?
My favorite part of the show, there's a scene before I sing vanilla ice cream. That's very funny, and the audience knows a secret that I don't know, and that's always great because I think they love that. They love having that secret, and they find a lot of joy in the humor of it. But we actually had a group of school kids come to see the show who had never been to the theater before, and they were yelling things. At first, they were so bored. They were on their phones. They were so annoyed. And by the end, they were like at the edge of their seat and yelling things out. And it was amazing. I mean, if grown-ups yelled things out, I'd be like, get out. But for these, teenagers to be so involved in the story, I found it, to me, it was so beautiful. It was my favorite show we've done.
Megan?
This is gonna sound very strange, but my favorite part was my entrance. But here's why. I made some very strange choices in a show that there's not much room to add much more. And I decided that my take on Brooke was that she was just trying really, really, really hard. She'd never spoken in anything before, so she was the actress that was mouthing along everybody else's lines with them because she memorized the whole page. She counted all of her steps because she knew that's where she was supposed to be. And at my entrance, I counted my steps and stood and started mouthing people's lines, and I could tell if people understood what I was doing immediately. Otherwise, it's like, oh, well, this is just for me.
Right, right. Oh, that's great. That's great. Jessie?
Again, I feel like it's hard. It's hard to pick, but the moment that I guess stands out to me right now is my character's dealing with an abusive partner, and there's a moment in the show, and it's become one of those moments that's different every night, where my character starts to reveal that she's done with it, she's had enough, and sometimes it's a different moment every night. Sometimes it's when I say I don't love the man anymore. Sometimes when it's when I say I'm leaving. There's sort of like this almost long speech at the end, and people pipe up. They either yell or they clap or they. And sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's dead silence. It's fascinating, but you can tell so much. You can tell so much from their reactions, yeah.
Jessica, how about you? What's your moment?
Moment in 4 hours? Let me think. No, I'd have to say, O'Neill probably wrote the most beautiful ending for a play. I mean, when Mary comes back down, kind of lost in this morphine haze, and she's gone back in time, and she's the young convent girl again, and she's basically it's kind of this strange thing. She's telling herself this story. That's at least how I imagined it. She's kind of wraith-like, ghost-like. I mean, it's more like almost like an apparition. And of course, I think this is like some of O'Neill's best writing, which says a lot, actually. But to end on that note, yeah, I fell in love with James Tyrone and was so happy for a time. I mean, it's like one of the great ending lines, I think, in all of theater. And, the audience, you never know because they've already sat through 3 hours, 45 minutes. And they're like, but there's something about his writing that just and you can feel this kind of collective, waiting, like this anticipation, maybe they're just waiting for the curtain. No. Which is what. But yeah, I mean, it is gorgeous writing. It is the end of this kind of monumental play. So I always feel fortunate.
Nice. Cynthia?
Basically, every night at the show is like a massive church. It's like church every time, and people are shouting out from the beginning. People are shouting out, people are yelling, hands are going up in the air, the whole 9 yards. There's a moment in I'm Here, I finish the song, and it's happened a lot. People get to their feet. which I thought was a fluke the first time it happened, so discounted it, didn't think anything of it, went on with the show, but it's happened time and time again. So I guess there's something in hearing someone say, I've had enough of this and I want a change and I am enough, that I guess speaks to a lot of people. People want to hear it, people want to say it, people want her to say it. You get to the end of the show where Mr., again, not to spoil it for her, Mr. asks Celie to marry her, and every time someone goes, hell no. No. You will just get one, and it will always be like one or two voices, and everyone will be like, no, the whole way through. So this, from the beginning, you're hearing shouting out and, everything, but that moment is hilarious because there's always a silence. I always leave in silence, and someone just cannot. You can feel it that they're trying not to say anything, and then the moment they hear it, they're like, no, hell no, just out in the audience, and we're just the two of us, Isaiah and I, who are just looking. Just wait for a second. We'll get to the point.
Right.
We'll give them a minute. Yeah.
Michelle, is there a moment? I mean, I think the audience is so stunned. You guys bust out there, and for 90 minutes nonstop, pretty much, it's like a rocket's gone off. So, is there a moment though when you can even pause long enough to sense the audience's presence in your show?
Oh yeah, I mean, ours is interactive. Somebody said the other night at a certain moment, somebody said, "Oh my God, disgusting." Audibly, I heard, "Oh my God, disgusting." And there's like reveals in our play, so there are like gasps and laughs. But the thing to me probably that stands out is in the middle of the play, I have a 6.5-page monologue, and then Jeff has a monologue, and in those monologues, it's like what Jessica was saying, there's like this collective agreement that the audience makes to listen even more intently than they have been, and there's like a silence that happens, and there's no coughing, and there's no rustling, and everybody's, it's really something. It gives me the chills now thinking about it. It's really beautiful, and like sometimes we sort of have to like remember to just like keep pushing and not just sort of sit there and like listen to like this like incredible silence that's fallen over. And then when the monologues are over, people, are people again, and they cough, and that you realize that they have agreed as an audience to just
be there,
to just really be there, and to like, and I appreciate it.
So, with characters,
I feel bad. I'm in the only non-interactive.
I'm gonna come once my play closes. I'll be like, "You go, girl!"
Yeah, let's go get rowdy.
Just say no.
No, don't go upstairs. Don't do that.
And wasn't Long Days written not to be performed supposedly, right? So maybe there was
Not to be performed what?
Not to be performed.
Really?
He explicitly said.
Yeah, he wrote it.
Or not until after he...
No, he wrote it and didn't want it published until 25 years after his death, I think.
25 years after?
And never to be performed.
Because it's really about his family, right?
Yeah. Wow.
That would be awkward. So, let me ask you guys, when you're playing characters that go through such emotional journeys like these do, when you go home, when you go home at the end of these shows, and Laura, in your case, people kind of leave on a high. In some of these other cases, that's not applicable. What is are you able to, just turn it off? You step out onto the street, you're back in Times Square with all the wackos that are out there. You can just go back to being yourself, or is there a sort of decompression period that needs to happen?
I want to hear what everyone else has to say. I want some tips.
I kind of need to step out of her quite quickly. Otherwise, I don't know if I would be able to go on with the night. Sometimes it takes a long time. Sometimes it takes ages. I will have warmed down, and I'll be speaking to people and still be sort of like in my head. Other times it's really easy, and I'll get out of her and it'll be fine. Sometimes I'll get home and just for no reason burst into tears crying over something random. It depends on the day. Sometimes you're more susceptible because you're open and you can't close the faucet real quick. It just takes its time. It's like a drip instead. Other times it's really quickly close the door and be and out. It just depends on it. how you started,
Right.
I think.
Michelle, I mean, I see you guys are not the happiest of campers when you're taking your bows. Can you move on quickly?
You look that miserable. Maybe I should cover it. Maybe I should put on a big smile. And I don't know. Maybe I'm not doing that the right way. I don't know.
wouldn't that be weird after going?
I don't know. I mean, it would feel disingenuous to sort of, but maybe it's, I don't know.
Or you could do, who was the great, who was it, theater of the absurd back in the 60s and 70s? Used to come out after a performance. Was it Charles Busch or who was it? And act as though he had no idea the audience was there. And he'd walk out there.
Yes. Yeah. You've been here this whole time.
You saw that? It was great. It was so great. Like, oh my God, you've been watching.
I do find the entrance and the exit, though, to the theater, like the space itself, like the preparation for the space, the use of the space, really important. Like, I do what I love here. Like, it's good to remember, as difficult as it is and as sort of like agonizing and as much dread as like you spend your day in thinking like, this is what I'm gonna go do, this is really what I'm gonna go do, that I try and remember, like, I try and like make the theater a place where I am free. Like, I get to do the things that I love there. And so I do those kind of like rituals before the show and after the show to really mark it as like, this is my space. Like, the rest of my life is my life, which is, but this is like, I only do what I love here.
Right. Does anybody else sort of do something to demarcate the beginning and end?
When we were at the Public, this play was very, very, very taxing on my soul, and I couldn't face people afterwards. It took time to build the stamina, and just the stamina for my heart. And so after the show, I would head home and just keep to myself. And upon moving to Broadway, I had that run as like a test drive, and now I'm able to come off of it sooner. But it's the same thing. I'll go through these rituals, and then God help all my friends, you know, and the people in my life, because I don't know when it's gonna come out of. It's not what's gonna trigger the.
Oh, it's the worst when you're like just having like in the middle of your day, and then like you get some sort of strange.
You bust your toe, and then it's
attacked
over.
because of the character. You've been working so deeply on it that like it starts to come out in all the wrong places, and at like very unexpected times you're like, oh no, that's her. That's not. You are not trash, Michelle. You are not trash. You will not wind up in the trash. That's Una that's in the trash. It's like I have to like really talk. No. Separate it.
All right, well, with our last minute or so here, we're gonna do something fun. It's rapid fire. First thing that comes to your, just shout it out. First thing that comes to your mind.
Everybody would just.
Anybody, whatever, jump in. Don't be shy.
Okay.
Most annoying thing audiences do.
Crinkle bottles. Cell phone.
M&Ms.
Emails, anything lighting up in your lap.
Yeah. I'm so glad that happens in your guys' shows.
Oh my gosh! And it's always the quietest moments. Like always. I was watching someone unwrap a cellophane bag of candy last night, I think, and she's looking at her husband like, "Is this bad?" Yeah. And you're like, "Yes, it is." And I so want to look at them and be like, "I did that. I had to stop the show for a cell phone ring."
Okay, next. Thoughts about entrance applause.
Oh no.
Awkward.
No, please.
Weird. But
Lovely.
Would you rather not get it though?
Yeah.
well, the thing is, I've had both. We started where there wasn't, and now there is. I don't know. I feel like because you're in the character. Yeah. And I don't know if that entrance applause is for the character or for the person.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
At least it didn't go the opposite
Well,
way.
I mean, you know, I mean, you just have to kind of, you take that beat, and then it's like this kind of suspended, and then it's like you just continue. But
Non-friend or relative attendee whose presence at your shows meant the most to you?
Non-friend.
Yes. Somebody you don't know, you wouldn't just go hang out with.
You mean just somebody that you don't know that
Don't
shows up at
don't
the
know
show?
really well. Maybe you've heard of
Now I
them,
think
but like
Jessica's
whatever.
my friend, but when she wasn't my friend, Jessica.
I always come see Michelle. She's one of my most favorites.
Gina Rodriguez came to see the show this weekend.
I had a lovely stagehand that I'd worked with before, and I know he wasn't there for me, but I saw him in the audience during previews, and I was like, oh my God, you're here. Like, that really heartened me, someone that I had worked with. And
My husband is not an actor, and all of his like bros from college who had never been to Broadway before, all like 12 of them came. They called it Bros Night on Broadway, and that meant a lot to me. I thought that was really sweet.
Oddest thing in your dressing room?
An espresso machine.
that's not odd, that's a lifesaver.
I mean, yeah, that's.
Not particularly odd. It's a big frame that I've put what is this line that you put in that you can hang your washing on? Instead, I put like cards and
I like that.
yeah,
I love that.
clothes lying. Yeah,
Mine
so
is
it's a big
M&Ms
frame.
with my face on them.
That somebody sent me.
You have those made, Lauren? I just hand paint them backstage.
What do you do, or what you do during intermission?
Eat an apple.
And sit down.
Yeah, steam.
Sit down. Eat
I
an
listen to
apple.
Old Man River.
Do you really?
I do, because
Nobody
I feel
sleeps?
the toll.
Well, now, take it up, that's our intermission.
Anyone
Okay.
specific?
Old Man River. Oh, which version? I listen to any version of Old Man River.
All right, thing you do on your day off.
Panels
This.
with actresses that we love.
Put on, makeup and get your hair done and come and talk about what you do.
Yeah.
The number of performances per week you wish your show had,
6.
6.
6.
and which would be the change? Which one would be dropped,
The matinees.
Double shows.
or which two? Yeah, double show. Okay.
Double shows.
Yeah.
Lastly, what you would be doing if you were not an actress?
Massage therapy.
Massage therapy?
Athlete.
Really?
I think I would be an athlete.
It seems like you could handle that. Yes.
I might still be a waitress. I don't know.
Waitress.
That's the only other job I ever had.
That's what you were doing before King Kong? Yeah.
I want to be a chef. I like feeding people.
I like that.
Be what I already am, a mom.
There you go. All right, well, we so appreciate you guys being here. I know it's not the top thing you'd probably like to be doing on your day off, but we really appreciate it. It's
Pretty great.
Yeah.
Hanging out with
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thanks very much.